Hey, what's up, everybody? This is In the Now, where we talk about the world of bodybuilding and what's happening in the IFBB Pro League today. My name is Eddy Miranda, and I have my co-host with me, Tom Cox.
What's going on, guys? Can't believe we're already 8 days out from the Arnold, so we got a lot of exciting topics to discuss.
All right, guys. So the first topic that we're going to be hitting today is going to be the qualification points for bodybuilding. On this list, it's already a really impressive list that we have going on here. In fact, the top 5 guys from the Mr. Olympia are already sealed and deal onto this list. And what happens at the Arnold is going to be a huge, huge deal of the determining events of what's going to be on this list.
We just got a very exciting year ahead of us, to say the least. It's one thing that isn't questioned, though, is with Phil Heath's return. Yeah, he's a Mr. Olympia, so he's lifetime qualified for the event. But it's already been speculated that he is pretty sour about the Olympia, and he's going to skip it because he wasn't promoted as he felt like he should have been back in 2018. So he might skip it and just have his reemergence in Athleticon and be the first Icon Classic winner.
Yeah, so I've been hearing that as well. I mean, there's been speculation that he may not even be returning to the Mr. Olympia this year, but again, it has changed hands as far as ownership. So things could actually change from here till then. He's qualified. Yes. He's qualified, and he's still able to compete. But again, we really don't know what's going to happen in the next few months going into that Olympia, right?
And that's right. And my opinion is, if you want to really leave behind the legacy, which he has, no one can question that. A 7-time Mr. Olympia champ, but to tie the record and still, he's young enough. And he still has his health. If he can get his midsection under control to shoot for 2 more titles and be the all-time record holder for most Olympia titles, most Sandows, why would you not? If you're already prepping and the Olympia is a month before, he's already shown that he can stay. He stays in shape. He's had a pretty good long off season and take care of his body, give him some time off. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see with the change in hands with the Olympia this year. But I would say, why would you not at least make that attempt?
Yeah, and then also on this list, it's very, very interesting because, again, we have the top 5 from the Mr. Olympia last year on this list. 3 of those guys are actually competing at the Arnold Classic this year in Ohio and also going into Australia. But what's most recognizable about this is that, we don't have Big Ramy on there. And Big Ramy is really speculated to win the Arnold Classic this year. The way he's coming in, remember, he didn't get to compete in 2019. If he comes into the Arnold and, as he speculated to win, I think it's just going to be a huge disrupt in this lineup. Because if he comes in that way and then setting foot on the Olympia stage, the way he will probably be at this Arnold stage, I think it will be lights out. Because he didn't get to compete last year. Brandon was the one that took it. Imagine if Big Ramy was on the Olympia stage last year.
Just that much more excitement. He is the most dangerous competitor going for that open title. And seeing him now, I know he's been very covered up, but with what Dragon Pharma has been putting out, seeing his death face, seeing his conditioning, even through his clothes, you can tell that he's just getting sculpted at this point. And he won second to Phil Heath, and I feel like he was still way off the mark. Yeah. With conditioning, he's never come in at 100%. So maybe we'll see that in the Arnold, but he's also has going by the past, he's just always been off the mark. So I think the Arnold is going to be what's going to really lay the foundation for his success to the Olympia.
See, the thing is, I saw an interview with George Farah, and George himself said that Big Ramy has all the capability in the world in order to win the Mr. Olympia. The only thing that's holding him back is his actual mindset when he gets on stage. Now, if he comes in at 100% and has a clear mindset, I think that he will be unmovable and unshakable from his top spot.
Oh, yeah. And you being a competitor, I know you've experienced this, and I recently experienced this at Nationals last year. you can be way ahead of schedule. You can be looking like you're ready to step on stage at 3 weeks out, right? But miscalculation, stress, lack of sleep, you just miss your peak, or you peak too early and you have to hold it, with the sodium and water manipulation that last week. Some people try to throw a Hail Mary when it's not necessarily needed. And I know this happens to a lot of athletes, and I can speak from personal experience that it is a lot of, mental toughness, mental game, those last few days leading up to show, and it can make or break you, any athlete. So I can definitely see that if it's his own worst enemy is himself when it comes to peaking perfectly.
Yeah, I even saw in an interview, the same interview with George, and he literally said that, Ramy was in peak physical condition for, I don't remember what specific show it was, but he was primed to step on that stage. And George saw him basically talking to a couple people, and from one moment to the next, George saw him. He looked great. He had that conversation. He stepped on stage, and then Big Ramy, he was like, "What the hell happened?" He looked like he spilled over. He wasn't 100%. So again, it's just like the mentality of Big Ramy that's really separating him from being in that top spot. And if he comes, and like what you said, the mentality, whatever happens, I mean, a swipe, a little, stress, whatever, something that got put in your mind right before could really change your physique from one moment to the next. So if Ramy comes in at 100%, totally feel, both mentally and physically, totally feel that he will be able to wipe the floor with everybody else on that stage.
No doubt. If he comes in with that crisp conditioning, with that size and that mass, it's going to be a spectacle to see. I don't think anybody's had that much mass and size since Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
But to see it with conditioning is going to be much more impressive.
Now, what's really, really impressive is the fact that Flex Lewis is making his switch from 212 to open bodybuilding. He doesn't have to compete this year. He's already pre-qualified because he's already been the champion for 212 for as long as it's been instated in the actual league. Because if people don't know, it was actually 202, and then just a few years ago, about like 6 or 7 years ago, is when it switched to 212. They bumped it up. Yep. And ever since then, Flex Lewis has been the reigning king of 212. But now he's stepping on the stage with the big boys. Like, how do you feel he would be against these big guys? Because a lot of people actually said that if he would have competed last year against the open bodybuilding, he would have actually taken it over Brandon Curry. Like, how do you think that he would step up against these bigger guys?
It's obvious to say that Flex is a crowd favorite. He's a great businessman. He's a great ambassador from the sport and what he's done to give back to the industry. And I think that is really what sets him apart. He's like another Jay Cutler, whereas Jay Cutler may have not had the best physique, but he was a hard worker, and he filled the gap with his work ethic and when he was chasing Ronnie through those years. So with Flex, getting back to my point, I feel like with that stature, it's going to be really, really hard to compete against some of the taller guys. Just look at through the years of bodybuilding. If you're standing next to a guy that's just overpowering, even though they might not have the best conditioning, it's going to be very easy to be overlooked. We did see Flex compete against Hadi Chupin a couple years back, Vancouver Pro, I believe. And a lot of people said that Hadi should have won that based off his conditioning, but they gave it to Flex. And I will say that Flex has a better aesthetically pleasing physique and structure than Hadi does. But I think he's going to be I would like to see the call out with Hadi, William Boniak, and Flex Lewis in the open. That's where whoever comes out of that could have a shot, I believe, in the top 6. I can't say top 3 though. I just can't. I can't say that it's being the first year from him moving to the open. But William Boniak, who's come in second, who has won the Arnold Classic, has proven himself as a top tier open bodybuilder. So I'd have to see Flex Lewis stand next to William Boniak, who I don't feel can put another ounce of muscle on his frame without blowing out his proportions.
Now, what if I told you that Flex Lewis always has to come down in his weight in order to meet the 212 criteria? So he's naturally bigger than 212. He has to come down for that. Now that he doesn't have to go through that strenuous training that he has to do and that strenuous diet in order to come down to 212, do you think that he'll be, more of a threat because of the fact that he doesn't have to diet down in order to meet the 212 criteria?
I feel like, yes, we're going to see his full potential. But I still have to stick by to, I think there's just a ceiling with that stature that you can reach. And even if he does pack on the size, it just matters. It just depends on if this is in the right areas, because this is the first time. This is the first time we're going to see him in that open where he doesn't have to, go through the strenuous work and making weight for the open.
Now, there's, in this list, I see like one more thing that, I really, really want to talk about, which is Hadi Choopan. Hadi Choopan, he qualified not only for 212, but for open last year. He had his issues trying to get his visa, but he was able to make it to the Olympic stage, make third place. Now, it seems like he's going to probably have the same issues trying to get his visa in order to come back. I really feel for the guy, man. It's like you bust your butt, you gain all this mass, you gain all this size. You want to compete against the top of the top, but your country is preventing you back. In a real weird morale way, like that would kind of like stump me. I wouldn't okay, like what am I going to be working for? But we still see him training. We still see him going at it, like if he is going to be coming. Do you think that he's just going to have a more difficult time trying to get his visa this year to come back? Or, maybe do you think that, somebody like Hani needs to start talking to the government, trying to see if they could like kind of pull some strings in order for him to come back and actually compete in the Mr. Olympia this year?
It is definitely going to be more challenging with all the political chaos that is going on in the U.S. and Iran. And I would say, yeah, of course, that can be very discouraging. But I will say that in his country, as everyone says, he's treated like a celebrity. To look that way, bodybuilders are just looked at as top athletes in other countries rather than how they are seen and perceived here. So I think that's what really just, helps fuel his ego to continue pushing. And, hopefully we will see him compete against the best in the world. But only time is going to tell.
All right, guys. So next we're going to be hitting up Classic, and this is a pretty diverse list. Right now, we already have the 3 Mr. Olympias going to be gracing the stage again, which is Breon Ainsley, Danny Hester, and of course Chris Bumstead, which won last year. Now, some notable guys that's on this list that's we feel are going to be a huge threat. We have like Wesley Visser, we have Terrence Ruffin, and more than likely, we probably think that Arash may hold his weight this year at this year's Olympia after taking 6. But I mean, Wesley himself, he's already been showing some progress pictures of him getting a bigger, leaner physique than what he did over at the Romanian Fest, which is where he qualified. Like, where do you think his physique's going in this year heading to the Olympia?
Wesley Visser, in my opinion, when he first came on the scene, he had one of the best like old school looks, which is what I thought Classic was at first it was intended to be. But what has evolved over the past couple of years, and we've seen guys with, hard conditioning, looking hard as nails on stage, the graininess that you see in the open division. I'd say even better conditioning that you see in the open division is what's seen in Classic now and what the standard has been. So that's what the judges are really looking for. But with Wesley, over the years, he's adhered to what the judges want to see improved. He modeled himself after Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has the big rib cage. He hits the poses the exact same way. And a lot of people say that that's why. I mean, he's such a fan favorite because he emulates Arnold so well, even with his accent and how he talks. But I see him definitely being a top contender this year if he continues in the direction, making the improvements how he has. And if he just stays focused, because he shut things down after the Romanian win, he shut things down. He's put in his whole focus. Now he's qualified for the Olympia, so he has all this time to prep. And from the looks of it, he's putting on the necessary size.
No, he made his mark over at the Chicago Pro about like 2 years ago. And when I saw the pictures, I was like, dude, this is like an emulation of Arnold. You know, same structure, same lines. It was so close, man. I mean, when I saw him, I'm like, this is classic. This is classic. There's no doubt about it. This is the physique that they should be looking for. You know, another one that's pretty close to like that classic look is Terrence Ruffin, which he's also qualified because he did Niagara Falls as well. That guy also has a classic physique. He has the small waistline. He has the hourglass look. He just needs to bring in his conditioning. He placed 6th at the Olympia last year. And if he brings in his conditioning, no, he placed 9th, if I'm not mistaken, because he was 9.69. If he comes in with his conditioning, he could actually be like a threat to everybody else on that.
I love Terrence's physique, man. Some of I feel like most underrated legs in the division. I don't know how he doesn't chafe every day from those adductors rubbing against each other. Literally no thigh gap with that guy. But he just presents his physique really well. He is I'd say the best poser in the division. Breon's right up there too. I think they're like neck and neck, just because they're that passionate about it. But that is a very important aspect, I believe, in classic physique, as it should be. And they are getting judged on that a lot more heavily than any other division, which I am 100% for. If you don't you might have the best physique, but if you don't present it well, what does it really matter?
Yeah, and then on this list, we have a few guys fighting for points. Some of the most notable guys on here is George Peterson, Keon Pearson, and of course Alex Habanero, which is going into the Arnold Classic in just a few short days. Now, if Alex wins it, then he'll be pre-qualified. He'll be going to the Olympia. But George is on this list, and there's actually a recent video that was released on his YouTube that talks about him switching to 212. He has the backing from Steve Weinberger, saying that he's perfect for 212. In fact, he could actually make it into the open because that's how big of a frame, that's how much muscle he could put on. Do you think that he's going to make a dent? Oh, and by the way, he's doing his debut in 212 at the New York Pro, which is one of the toughest shows to be able to do a 212 debut at, let alone open bodybuilding as well. I mean, it's going to be stacked, but like, how do you think he's going to fare, like, going into the New York Pro as a brand new 212 competitor to try to get his qualification to go to the Mr. Olympia for that division?
I think it's a good strategy. Looking at how, just judging by how his presentation, his physique, his conditioning at the Olympia, he was just too big. He's too muscular. He stood out in the top 3. But he's a bodybuilder. Yeah. Everybody says that. So I feel like he can definitely put on the necessary size to be a threat. However, you see Keon, and he's taking the approach of taking the year off, which I think is smarter on his end. He's younger. He needs a little bit of time for muscle maturity, and he has a lot more size in his frame that he can pack on. But I have no doubt that they both are going to excel in the 212 division.
All right, and next we want to talk about the men's physique division and the point qualifications for that. We already have a lot of heavy hitters for this year's Olympia on this list. We have, of course, Raymond Edmonds, which is already Mr. O from 2019. We have Ryan Terry, which won his qualification at the Asian Grand Prix. Brandon Hendrickson, which will always get an invite back because he is Mr. O. We also have here Kyron Holden, which he won his qualification back in California. The one that's really interesting on this list is actually Jeremy Potvin. So he's making his comeback. He's really taken about like a year and a half off. He came back at the end of last year, won a show on the West Coast, and now is prepping his way for that. So it's going to be exciting because the first year he ever graced that stage, he was top 3 at that show. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Jeremy performs at this year's Olympia. But what's really notable about this list is that there's a couple people that are running for points. And if you notice, I didn't mention Andre Ferguson because he has not qualified. He's only gained points. So, you know, he's running for the Arnold Classic right now. He's trying to do his 3P. You know, I think he's really a shoo-in for that show. So he's going to be hands down qualified by the end of next weekend. What do you think about Andre and where he stands in his qualification?
He's like a young Dexter Jackson, man. The guy just loves to compete. He's gonna be in every show collecting those checks, pissing people off. It doesn't matter. Yeah. He's gonna be there. He's gonna be top 2 in every show that he does this year. It doesn't matter. He's gonna be at the Olympia 2020. You can bet money on it.
All right, so let's go into speculation. There's actually somebody that's not on this list, but it's been rumored. Now I say it's been rumored, and there's only speculation, that somebody wants to make a comeback to the stage. A previous Mr. O, and he's gone for it 4 times. And on his 5th try, he ended up having surgery that year. He wasn't 100%, and he lost the title. He went out on a downer, I believe. You know, given the circumstances, I really don't feel like he should have stepped on the Olympia stage that year. You know, I think he should have ended on an up. But either way, the speculation is that Jeremy Buendia might be coming back to this year's O in order to get his 5th title. Do you think that's even, you know, a possibility? I mean, I've seen him on his social media. It looks like he's getting bigger. He hasn't stopped training. But he hasn't fully announced if he is going to want to come back. Again, speculation and all. Do you think that him stepping on stage this year will be relevant to what the current men's physique looks like?
No question. I feel like if he came back and he was 100%, he would take it home. And it's not speculation as far as if he wants to. He's already started his promotion and series on YouTube about his comeback, his fight for 5 to finish off what he started. He's out for blood. But I will say that it's still up in the air if the IFBB is still going to allow him to come back after all the allegations, and seeing that he is not on the official qualified list. So that's still to be said. But the guy's physique, love him or hate him, he was the standard. He's who Steve Weinberger chose year after year to represent the men's physique division. He carried the division on his back for many years and brought a lot of notoriety to it, international fan base. So he can be credited to that. But it's just still to be seen if he's going to be allowed to compete this year. But I believe if he does, and with the way he's looking this far out, putting his whole focus into it, he can be a very deadly contender for that title.
Yeah, I mean, those speculations really hit hard for him. Again, he got dropped from his sponsors, his coach. Now he's being coached by Abdullah over at the O2 gym. So now he's part of the O2 family over there. So, I mean, why would he even switch coaches to somebody like Abdullah if you're not going to come back, right?
And if you're not going to come back bigger.
Exactly. I mean, it's the writing's on the wall. But again, this is speculation. But he has been hit hard with a lot of the stuff, and he's had to regain his momentum. He's had to regain his branding. He's had to regain everything, in order to be good in people's eyes again. Now, if the IFBB wants to have him back, if the Mr. Olympia and Jake Woods wants to have him back, that's a different story. But from the looks of it, again, switch coaches. Now's with Abdullah. His training looks bigger, looks just as lean this far out. If he makes it back, he could actually make a huge dent there.
Yeah, and as they say, time does heal all wounds, and maybe he has reformed himself in his life and admitted to his mistakes, and everybody loves a comeback. So I think it will make for a very entertaining Olympia if he's allowed to come back, for sure.
Now, talking about competitors wanting to come back after, speculations and everything like that. On his social media, he was very, very public about it. He was actually on a live feed about it. And it was reported that he did this, that, this guy has not let his foot off the gas. Even at last year, he was prepping like he was going for the O. He's still prepping like he is going to step on stage. He's still training just as hard. But Shawn Rhoden went live on his Instagram just the other day. And I think one of the questions was, are you going to be competing at this year's O? Now, he didn't say he was going to be competing at the O, but I believe it is confirmed that he is going to be at Athleticon. But I think he may be doing a show before that. Now, he has his controversy. He has the situations that happen. Again, innocent till proven guilty, because he hasn't even gone through the cases yet or gone to court for it. But making his comeback, I think that's a huge deal. Coming back in this year after everything that has happened, he couldn't compete. AMI didn't let him back on the Olympia stage. I think this is going to be a pinnacle year for him, because it's really going to show if him winning the Olympia last year would have been a fluke. Because everybody says you win it once, it's a fluke. You win it twice, it's right. You're solidified. You're okay. It's not a fluke. You are a champion. Again, we don't know if he's going to be 100% coming back to the Olympia. Now, if he does, do you think that he'll be able to, compete against these guys? Against Big Ramy, against Hadi Chupan, against Brandon Curry, against all these big guys, given the fact that all this stuff happened with him, in the past couple of years?
It's hard to say, because he's fighting Father Time as well. And I don't see him being another Dexter Jackson competing until he's 50. I mean, he's right there behind him, though.
Yeah.
But with that, in the age, has come, that hard grainness, muscle maturity, and actually, because I'm such a fan of the classic physique division, I love what he brings to the stage as far as his structure. It was like the second coming of Flex Wheeler. Yeah. When he won 2018, he even had that iconic pose like Flex Wheeler had back in the day. So if he does, he's had a lot of time off. And I'd say if he doesn't do the Olympia, which we can all understand, hopefully we will see him at Athleticon. Damn it, everybody's doing Athleticon. So if you save some money, stash some money back, because after Olympia, that is going to be the show to be at.
No, I mean, I've always liked Shawn's physique, and you hit on the nail. He looks almost identical, has same structure as Flex Wheeler.
Yep.
Flex Wheeler had that iconic look, and Shawn Rhoden is really piggybacking, almost looking like a Flex Wheeler. I've always loved this physique. I was always wondering, I'm like, why isn't he Mr. Olympia? Because I think that he has the most put together, bodybuilding physique out there. Stands out amongst the rest. And yeah, I mean, age is battling against him, but it doesn't mean that he's not going to get greater. Even in his live, he says that this is going to be his best showing that he's ever put on.
He did say that.
And I mean, to say that's very, very bold, especially at his age. That's like, again, we compare it to Dexter Jackson. He's been in this game for over 20 years. He is one of the oldest bodybuilders currently that's competing right now. And he always looks just as good, or if not better, than he did before. Now, given the fact that, if you shave off 10 years from him, yeah, he will look freaking amazing. But Shawn is only getting better with age right now. And I think that's not going to change coming this year.
Yeah. And it's really when it comes down to it, Shawn, after all the shit that he's been through, and I don't want to assume that he's not guilty. Let's just say that he's innocent of these charges, and having to go through all that, for me, that would be more than enough motivation to come back with everything that I got and prove everybody else wrong and claim my place. Not that I won because Phil Heath lost, but I won because I was the best.
Yeah. And you said it a little bit earlier that, if Phil Heath would have gotten his gut into check, which we know he went through multiple surgeries, he had, hernias and all this stuff, so he really couldn't control his gut. But the deciding factor for 2018 was the fact that Phil Heath couldn't hold in his gut, and Shawn looked a little bit better than what
he
Phil
won
did.
in every single pose besides the abs and thigh.
Exactly.
But Shawn Rhoden had a controlled waistline after Phil Heath was worn the year before to get it under control.
Yeah.
So
I will be very excited to be able to see if he does step back onto that old stage.
For sure.
And what damage he would actually cause. But there's actually another veteran that's coming back into the scene. This one's actually pretty surprising because, this guy wasn't even on the radar for wanting to compete. But it actually had to be a very old veteran that convinced him, actually trained him to get back onto stage. He's been retired since about 2017. His last show, I believe, was on Mr. Olympia. He plays fairly well at that one. But this guy's 49 years old, coming back and hitting the Arnold stage out of all the stages in the world. Johnny O is looking like a monster right now. I've seen his progress pictures. I've seen his videos. He looks bigger than ever. I mean, his traps are bigger than his head. I mean,
he's never had a neck.
But I find that's pretty incredible, the fact that Johnny O, had Branch Warren behind him, training him, and pushed him to compete again. I think that's going to be a pretty crazy spectacle. I mean, and we've seen these guys all come back. We've seen Flex Wheeler come back doing the classic.
Kevin Levrone came back in the open.
He came back in the open. Again, Flex didn't do so well, in classic. Kevin Levrone, again, his age caught up with him. He didn't look as conditioned. He didn't look as big as he used to. I think that this is going to be different with Johnny. I really do. Just the way that he's looking pretty big, and I think he's actually going to nail the conditioning this time around.
I'd like to. Believe me, like my heart of hearts, I'd love to see it happen. But how many times have we seen this through the course of history when bodybuilders retire, said they're done, finished, no more. I'm going to hang it up, and then a couple years later they come back, but it's like a former shell of what they used to be.
Yeah.
With the guys, especially in the open division, you can't really fight against it. Your legs are gonna atrophy. The only one who's actually been able to overcome that has been Dexter Jackson, because the guy is he just knows how to overcome all these obstacles with his body for longevity purposes. I don't think we're never gonna see another Ronnie Coleman, and we're never gonna see another Dexter Jackson in this sport. Plain and simple. But I would like to see Johnny Jackson come back and be competitive. I think everybody likes a big comeback story, and it's just really cool that Branch Warren, good friend, top tier competitor in his time, just hardcore, badass training styles that they did at Metroflex, and just to kind of see how maybe Branch put a lot of that energy that he would in himself in his prep, and he's able to really see that with Johnny O leading up to the Arnold. I know that was kind of helped him get back into the game himself. So I'd like to see him come back, but it's going to be very interesting. It brings another excitement factor to the Arnold for sure.
No, and I've seen how Branch trains, and it is insane the way he trains.
It's a madman.
No, he's a complete madman. I mean, I've never seen anybody train. I remember the first experience of seeing him train was on the GI, documentary, the very first one.
Oh yeah.
And I mean,
how he does lat pull downs with the entire stack.
Yeah, no, it was insane. Like, hey, get the fuck out of my way. I'm trying to train here.
I would rip a lat if I tried to do that with one rep.
It's insane, his training style, but Branch with his insane training style has never been the most conditioned guy on the Olympia stage. He's always been beat in that department. But it doesn't mean that Johnny wouldn't be that way either. So I'm really intrigued to wanting to see how this will actually turn out. And I can't wait to see this live as it happens. When Johnny walks out, I want to be able to see his conditioning, the way he's put together. Again, he's fighting with age. He's fighting with retirement. But one thing that he did not do once he retired, he did not let off the gas from his training. Because he trained every single day, hardcore as he always did. And I'm intrigued. I'm really, really intrigued to see.
For sure. And either way, you're gonna see a legend on the stage. No matter how he shows up, he's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, bodybuilders pound per pound in his heyday. So it's gonna be pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, and talking about guys in that age bracket, Dexter is definitely It's always been speculated. I mean, every single year, everybody asks, is he retiring? Is he retiring? Is he retiring? And I think this year is finally the year. He has four guaranteed shows that he's going to be doing this year. All 3 Arnold Classics, Ohio, Australia, and of course, Brazil, which is the first time ever that Brazil is going to have a bodybuilding show for the Arnold. And of course, the Olympia. But I think that that's an end of an era. I mean, because he is, again, the most looked upon bodybuilder, the most winningest bodybuilder. And to see that person, that athlete, say goodbye to the sport, I think it's heartbreaking because he's been such an impact on the sport for about 20 years.
Absolutely. And he tied together the 3 generations, not just 2. I mean, you got the 90s, the early 2000s, and 2010s. Dexter Jackson was in the top 10 every single time.
Yeah. He's. I mean, again, he's hit every single Olympia. Of course, winning the one in 2008. He's come close. But hasn't been able to gain that again. It will be interesting that at the age of 50, if he makes comeback to the Olympia. And he wins it, man. That's like hands down.
Make a movie.
Yeah, I'm gone.
Sign the contract.
That's it. I'm gone. That's it. It's over.
That's the shit movies are made of.
I'm happy to retire. I mean, he realistically would want to win the Arnold Classic in Ohio, the one in Australia, and the one in Brazil. He will be the first one, if that's done. He will be the first one to not only win all 3. But to win all 3 in the same year, which it's completely possible. It is completely possible because I think he's actually won Ohio and Australia in the same year before. So it doesn't mean that he's not capable of doing. I think he's completely capable of setting that kind of record and then coming back for the Olympia. Oof. Dude, that's it. End my year. I'm good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he won't come back. If that's the case, no matter where the cards fall, even if he won, and I know he's been on record saying that I'm going to keep competing until I start seeing a regression in my placings.
Yeah.
I think even if he won this year, why would he have to compete? What else more does he have to do at this point? Realistically, is he going to continue being able to hold that threshold or get a bit better? Probably not. He can make a really good living building off his brand, doing guest posing year round. Mike O'Hearn just went on record with GI saying that he does guest posing to this day at 51 years old every other weekend.
Yeah.
Not to mention the seminars on top of that. So I know Dexter is more of a guy that sticks to himself and just pretty much just, balls deep in prep
Yeah.
year round. But I don't know, maybe that could be something that he has to look forward to in his retirement.
Yeah. I mean, dude, he's been competing for years. I don't think he's ever really been able to focus on like his brand and what his name could really do in this industry other than just competing. I mean, think about it this way. Jay Cutler retired. He has Supplement 9. He has his own YouTube channel.
He's killing it. He's still relevant. Very relevant.
He's still
healthy.
He's still relevant. There are quite a few other guys that have done that. I think it's time for him to be able to take that step. I think he really needs to, brand himself. I mean, he used to be the face of Ultimate Nutrition. He used to be the face and the brand for that. He's no longer with that company. I think he really needs to step out and have his own venture. I mean, again, he makes really, really good money for what he does. I think he just needs to do that and brand himself and keep himself relevant, because he's been relevant for 20 years. Why can't he be relevant for another 20 coming up, as his brands, as doing shows, doing seminars, whatever the case may be.
And he's a guy that's smart and knows, like, hey, while I still have my health, this is what I'm going to do.
All right, guys. So that pretty much wraps up our show for this week. Again, if you guys have any questions, want us to discuss any topics next week, just remember there's a comment section below. Write it out, whatever it is that you want. Again, subscribe, like. We value your feedback as much as possible. So again, guys, for this week, this is Eddy Miranda, and we have Tom Cox, and we will see you next week.